Hey everybody, welcome to week number 7. And I know I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I am just absolutely blown away about how fast everything seems to be moving. Again, it felt like we just started this class. This is the next to last week. So we are flying forward. So a couple things here before we get started. First off, I don't know why this is looking so burnt out, washed out, blue. I couldn't tell you that. I'm sorry. Generally, it looks a lot better than that, but yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the lighting tonight. Also, too, I do want to just kind of remind everybody again, and I will again next week. But I just want to remind you guys that when we get to week 8, that's it, right? Like we hit the end of week 8, and that will be it. There won't be like a continuation over the next week or two or whatever. Those are hard deadlines that you need to be very aware of, right? So as you work through 7 and get yourself set up for 8, anything you can do to build in extra time, anything that you can do to be working ahead, giving yourself that best opportunity for success, that's really going to be beneficial to you. Because again, when we hit the end, we hit the end, right? So please keep that in mind, okay? Um, Last week in module 6, you started doing research on a topic, right? Like you started to think about this is the topic that I want to write my persuasive paper on. Now we're really going to do it. We're going to do the writing, right? Module 7 is joining the conversation. And so we've talked all this about listening to other people and evaluating what they've said and comparing different arguments. Now we're going to come in with our own argument, right? And what this really means when we talk about joining the conversation, we're really focused on, can you make a solid, valid, rational, logical, well thought out argument? And can you produce the proof to back that up? Okay. It's not what your position is, but it's the fact that you can defend it. Right. And I think that's one of the things that in society that we have a lot of hard time with right now. It's so easy to throw out a hot take, right? Like that's my take. That's what I think. But if I don't have to back it up, what does it matter, right? It doesn't mean anything. And anybody can throw out a this and a this and a this. It doesn't matter. But when you can actually defend it and back it up and say this is what and how and why, that's when you have a valid argument and you really are joining the conversation, right? Now, the conversation does take on a slightly different connotation when you talk about debating, okay? When it comes to writing, we're producing the message and we're trying to anticipate how people would respond to our message if they had the chance to. So that's what we're looking at in module number 7. We'll start off with several different tutorials. There'll be several things for you to be doing. Again, just a rehash of what module 7 writing project number 3 is. We're going to do the half draft, right? This will be your first um, your first chunk of the paper, right, to show us what you have and that you're on the right path. 600 to 700 words. The final draft is going to be in the 1500 word category. All right. A couple things to think about in this paper. Obviously, using all the tools we talked about, they say, I say, we say, you talk about all those kinds of things. Here's my position. Here is why, and this is how I can defend it. Those are the big things that we have to see. Again, your position on the topic isn't that important to me. I mean, yes, it is. You have to have a valid reason, right? But there is no like, oh, I don't agree with you, or I agree with you, therefore you got a better grade. That's not the goal. As long as you can provide the validation and the proof for that, that's what we are really looking for. Now, and go back to this idea that week 8 is the end. I've said it before on our other half drafts. The more of the draft you can provide, the more feedback you're going to get, right? So you have a better shot of having a stronger paper in the end. I think also, too, it's important because the more of the paper you can write in week 7, the less of it you have to do in week 8, right? And so instead of stressing and having to jam through all this stuff at the last minute, right? you're going to set yourself up a little bit better. The final draft of week 8 is also due on Friday instead of Sunday. So it's due a little bit earlier. So again, that's a little something to be thinking about. The expectation here is 600 to 700 words. It is the half. Okay. If you have the half, you are perfectly, that is perfectly acceptable and right in with line with the expectations. But again, the more that you can do, the better. And I would encourage you to try to do that to get as much of that done as you can. And again, the final draft of that will be due on week number 8. It does give you some information here about the researched argument being like an attorney in this slideshow. And so, what we want to start off with is taking a stand. And I know a lot of times people say, oh, I kind of like it, but I kind of don't. Yeah, I know in the real world there's a lot of gray, right? There's a lot of room for interpretation, there's a lot of wiggle room. But when it comes to this type of writing in this situation, we definitely want to take a stand. Like, this is my belief, this is where I stand. Anytime that you start to allow other viewpoints to, like, I also think this, I also think that, it weakens your initial argument, right? So, for the purpose of this, let's take a position and stick to it, right? That is our goal. Okay. Um, we talk about being an advocate, and what we're really looking at here is that there's a benefit, right? Like, there is something worthwhile on the other side of this argument. It's not self-serving. It's not limited to a very narrow. We're looking at, like, this is a thing that really will make a difference for people. Some things to think about with the thesis statement. Now, we're going to talk about the thesis statement being like that guiding statement. Like, this is the first thing I state out. This is the first thing I throw out there, right? And that controls the rest of the paper. So if you really come out with a strong thesis, that's really going to help you stay focused through the rest of the paper. Again, it gives you some things to be thinking about as you do your thesis. First off, was focused, that we're looking at a very particular, specific aspect of this. Okay, we're not looking at like this huge, broad range. You're not talking about gun control, right? Because that's like the whole thing. What about gun control we're talking about? We're talking about background checks. We're talking about not limiting gun ownership. Are we talking about magazine capacity? Are we talking about ghost? What are we talking about, right? And so when we talk about that, we want to look at this particular aspect. Now, is that aspect connected to other pieces? Yes. Do you need to acknowledge that? Maybe, but that's not going to be the bulk of your paper. The main focus of the paper is going to be this particular aspect. It does have to be debatable. And what we're looking at here is that reasonable people can agree and reasonable people can disagree. That there is a place for people to debate and talk about this issue. Now, I think that it's important to note that there's always going to be people way out on the edge. Right? There's going to be some people way out there. They're going to believe some really wacky stuff. Just because there's a few people out there that might believe it doesn't make it mainstream, right? And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that this topic is something that reasonable people can discuss. And it is okay to have a variety of positions on it because there's a variety of positions that people can have. It's debatable, right? Breathing air. You can't debate that because there's no logical don't breathe air because humans have to, right? So you can't. That's not a debatable topic. And then it is supportable, and that means that there has to be a way to validate and back up and underpin your argument. Okay, that you have to be able to use valid sources to bring in your research to prove your point. And that is so key because, again, it's not exactly what you say. I mean, that's your starting point, but it's how you say it. They give you some examples here of some weak thesis statements. I can't stand war movies. Well, okay, that's a personal opinion, right? Like, how do you back that up? Like, now you could give reasons for it, like I don't like war movies because one, two, three, but those aren't researchable, right? And my personal opinion isn't debatable, right? Like, that's just what I believe. Okay. And so you want to make sure that it's something that we can bring and support and allow it to be debated on reasonable, logical, factual evidence. The National Football League is in trouble. Why? Financially, legally, quality of gameplay, what? And many developing nations suffer from hunger shortage. That's not debatable because, yeah, that's right. Some do, some don't. What are we going to talk about, right? So we do want to make sure that it does hit all those things. Another piece, and I think this is something where people really kind of, and I've made a similar statement before on some people's papers about using a question as a thesis. Um, your thesis statement should be a statement, not a question, right? In fact, the answer to that is probably your thesis. If you have a question, the answer is probably your thesis, right? And so what we want to do is we want to avoid that responding, right? We want to avoid a yes no answer. Or what would you do? I would do this. Bam, done. No, we want to be able to put this piece out here and allow people to engage and interact with it, right? So again, avoid those questions. Are America's health lifestyle choices killing them? That's a yes or a no, right? That's a yes or a no. So what we want to do then is you want to think about how the audience is going to interact with that. Because if you say, are they? And you're trying to argue that they are, and you're trying to show that these are some things people can do. What if the answer is, no, I don't think so? Why would that person keep reading, right? And so you want to make sure that you allow it to be a statement, not a question. Um, they give you some examples of some argument-based thesis here that you can take a look at and model your answer on. The big thing that I really would like you to think about on here is to be able to give a thesis statement that is an encapsulation of your whole argument. It's not everything. It's not all the examples, not all the rationales, not all the proof, but it's a quality, clearly stated, emphatic position on the topic. Okay. And again, the better you can do on that, the better you will do on the rest of your paper because it will keep you focused uh, as you move through it, right? The next piece here is this building of your arguments, and it's going to walk you through different types of arguments. These are approaches, right? Remember at the beginning of the year we talked about purpose, audience, and approach, and we said here's what I want to do, and here's the audience that I'm aiming at. I'm trying to get them to do this. Approach then is how do I deliver that content to them? What makes the most sense to them? And so this slideshow gives you a lot of different types of arguments that you could do, claims of cause and effect or values, some things to be, to help you kind of organize your thought. Three kind of pieces that I would like just to kind of make sure that you're clear on: claim, evidence, and reasoning. Now, these are some terms you're going to hear, throughout the content of this module. Claim is your specific assertion on the topic, right? This is I believe this, right? This is the thing that this is the position that I hold. This is the reasoning for this, right? Um, and then evidence. That's the proof. That's the research that you bring in. That's the experts. That's the examples. That's the historical look. That's the terminology, right? Those are the pieces that really back up that. And again, the better, stronger your sources are, the stronger your argument becomes. And then reasoning is your interpretation of that evidence. How did you come to that conclusion, right? I mean, you think about throughout your entire life. We always told you don't stick your finger in the electric socket. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. It didn't really mean a lot to you until you did it yourself, right? Now, reasoning is, well, I have this piece of information. People told me this. Now I have a personal experience and I understand what they're saying, right? And I understand that maybe as you got older, you learned more about electricity, learn more about safety, right? And now all those pieces start to come together. That's reasoning. I'm putting the pieces together. How did you interpret that information? Why does that make sense to you in the context of your argument? Uh, so take a look at those. Those will give you some different ideas of how to kind of formulate your paper. I don't think that they're the only ways you can do it, but there's some things to help you kind of get on board, okay? To kind of structure and approach your paper. The discussion board for this week. This is a kind of an interesting one because this one will help you kind of think about what is the best way to approach my audience. This is where you are going to say, hey, this is what I believe, and this is why you should care. And we're talking about that approach, right? We're trying to make it make sense to other people, either using that cause and effect or those value statements or, those definition kind of things, right? We're using those kind of approaches to make the audience see it in a way that makes sense, and shows that they should be concerned about it. If you think about breast cancer, 1 in 1 million men get breast cancer. 1 in 1 million. If you if we start with the round numbers, let's use some round numbers. If there's 350 million Americans, and we just assume that half are women, that means that there are 175 million men in the United States. If 1 in 1 million men get breast cancer, that means that right now in America, statistically speaking, and this, again, this is oversimplification, but as an example, there's 175 men in the United States today that have breast cancer. Now, I know that's oversimplifying it, but it's an example. So the question is, why do men get involved with Komen for Race for the Cure or any of these kind of breast cancer awareness fundraisers or activities, right? Like, why do these guys join this event wearing pink? Or you think about the NFL and they're wearing their pink shoes and the pink jerseys and the NBA, they have their kinds of things, right? Why do guys do that? Because this organization, these people that have been trying to make awareness of breast cancer, they've done a very good job to say, okay, guys, it's not you, but it's your mother, it's your grandmother, it's your sister, it's maybe your spouse, maybe your girlfriend, maybe it's a good friend that you have that's a girl. And so they've made sure that men care, right? And that's what you're doing. When you take this topic and you look at these different approaches and you present these claims, you're really trying to show people, why should you care? What's in it for you? And so what you're going to do is you're going to take your topic and you're going to try out these different claims: argument of claim of definition, cause and effect, value, solutions and policies. That was in that slideshow that you'll be going through, and there's also some tutorials on it too. And you're going to take those and you're going to construct 4 different claims. Okay, so on your post you'll say, here's my topic, here's a claim of definition, here's a claim of cause and effect, and then you're going to take 2 of them and think about how you believe 1 or 2 of them really help the reader get it. How does it really help people connect, right? Because that's what we want to do. We want people to connect to it and show that it's meaningful to them. So if you look at 1 or 2 of those, why do you think those really helped people connect with that, right? That topic, make them care more, and make it make sense to them. I would really like to have you have your initial post up by Thursday of this week. Again, that gets a lot of content for people to spend the weekend to reply to. You are going to come back and have at least 2 responses to this. On this, you're going to say, hey, I looked at these different things, and yes, it does help people connect because this really helps you explain your topic. This really helps drive the point because. And so what we want you to do is we want you to look at how they approached and sold it, and is that or is that not a good way of selling it. Now, you as the original poster then can take that kind of idea and think about, like, okay, here's my paper and here's how I'm doing it. Is this effective? The way I did it and the way other people are seeing it, is this the most effective way? Now, I do want to kind of emphasize something here on this discussion board. Of all the discussion boards we've had, this one and then the peer review one that we'll be doing next, um, these do require you to be a little bit tactful. On this discussion board in particular, we're not debating the issue. So we're not saying like, oh, you said this, but I feel, and okay, that's not what we're doing. We're not debating the topic in this discussion board. That's not the goal of this discussion board. The goal of this discussion board is, here's your, I looked at your topic and I looked at the way you're presenting it, and I think it will or will not help explain it because, right? Like I want you to really look at how it was presented. We're not debating the topic, okay? And I think that I just want to kind of reiterate that because of all the discussion boards we've done, this is the one that is probably kind of opens you up the most. This is the one that makes you the most vulnerable because here you're saying, this is what I believe, right? And those are some things that if somebody says, oh, I don't believe that because, it kind of feels personal, like a personal attack, right? We don't want that. And that's not the goal of this discussion board. So let's keep it tactful. Let's keep it honest. Let's, be critical, but let's not be mean and let's stay focused. We're not debating the topic. We're really focused on the presentation of a person's message. And again, as you know, the rubric, the best scores are the people that come back to this discussion board on multiple days. The ones that respond to more than two, the expectation is two, but more helps you get all those points. Then we have the submission of your half draft. I do, again, want to encourage you to do more than the half, if at all possible. Even if it's 3/4. The more you can do this week, the easier it's going to be for you next week when you're on a kind of a little bit more, you're kind of under a little bit more of a crunch next week, right on week 8. So, try to think about like, what can I do now to help me over there? You will submit your half draft here. The expectation is 600 to 700 words. Anything above that is great and gives you more feedback, okay? And kind of lightens your load the following week. If you have questions or problems submitting that, please let me know so that I can help you with that. Don't suffer a late penalty because you didn't know how to submit it, okay? Reach out. Let's get that done. You will also then post a copy of that paper, your half draft, onto the discussion board for the peer response. You don't have to do any responses yet, okay? At the end of this week, at the end of Module 7, you're going to post your half draft into the assignment, and you're going to post a copy of it into this discussion board that we will use next week for the peer review, okay? So, again, guys, I have to say that you guys have been doing a lot of really good work. So many of you have been really showing improvement. You guys have stuck to it. You guys have been working up to, you've been up to speed. You've been staying on top of things. That is really great. I know that it's summer. I know that we're coming to the end of both the summer end of the class, right? And so I know these things are really starting to pile up. So the more you can do, whatever you can do to stay focused these last 2 weeks, you want to finish strong, you want to finish on a positive note. I know that you can do that. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys produce in your arguments because some of the things I've seen so far, a lot of you have a lot of creative takes on things. So I'm really excited to see what you come up with. All right? As before, I've said, if you have any questions, please make sure you're reaching out. Email is the best approach so that I can respond to that in different times. If you do need to call, please do that. If you call, please make sure to leave your name and specific questions so that when I do get back to you, which might be a little bit, if I don't answer right then, if I have to come back to you, that way I have that information ready for you so that we can kind of speed that process up a little bit. Texting is also okay too. But email, again, is the best way because that allows me to respond in between things. And again, it's the end of the summer for me as well. My kids are running in like all kinds of different directions. We've got band, we've got camps, we did Bible school last week, we got critter camp this week. So, it's a lot of stuff going on. So, uh, that is the best approach. And I do want to make sure to get that, be able to reach back out to you and help you out. But again, it's a joint effort, and so we want to work together to make that as effective as possible. Guys, have a great week. Good luck, and let's finish up on a high, strong note.